is Marinette Ball. I'm with the We Up, and I'm the co-founder of We Up. I'd like to welcome everybody to the call. And we are going to today talk about demystifying the grant process and the strategies and feature Jennifer on the call as well, Jennifer Allen, and she's going to be facilitating the call. And she has a lot of experience with grant writing, donor relationships, community impact. So she share her expertise and experience with the fundraising and grant writing process as well. We're going to cover a lot of material at the beginning of the call. So hold your questions. We're going to do a half an hour. We're going to do an hour for the presentation. At the end of the call, we do like a half an hour for the Q&A session. And we encourage everybody to turn the cameras on and engage and ask questions and also provide feedback about your grant process and your grant experiences. I'm going to, and Latasha is going to handle our controls. Latasha Ball will handle our controls. And if you have any questions, put in the chat. And then we'll address your questions toward the last part. If you have a really pressing question, just put in the chat and I'll raise my hand and have Jennifer answer your questions as well. Okay, so I see everybody's going to come. Mara Samora, hi Mara, haven't seen you in a long time. Okay, Kendria. Okay, so everybody's putting the information in the chat. This call will be recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel, so you can go back as for reference and get the information as well. I'm going to hand the call over to Jennifer.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate the welcome. It is indeed a pleasure to be here today to talk about demystifying grants and how we can be a part of the winning team in receiving. Our focus today, however, is going to be on really answering and clarifying some of the confusion or some of the misinformation that we hear often when it comes to nonprofit grants versus business grants, the availability, the challenges, and the opportunities that are out there. So with that being said, my background, I have worked, and I'll go ahead and share my screen just to get that moving. My background, I've worked with grants for over 25 years, and want to make sure, can everyone see my screen?
Okay, go to the next one, Jennifer. We just see the first. Okay, now we see it.
Okay. It's trying to hide, so I'll keep that at the top.
Okay.
So I've been in grants administration for over 25 years, working grant writing, administration, donor relations, everything from nonprofits to corporations, working with faith-based organizations, working with small foundations, anything grants, contracts for businesses. Those have been arenas that I have been able to work in. So very diverse and very different. Yet the core of my services, or the core of my passion rather, is to make sure that those who want to make a difference in the community, those who want to start their business and be impactful in their business, that they have the right tools and the right support. So let's talk a little bit about that. We'll talk today about the types of grants that are out there, grant qualifications, documentation for grant applications, strategies for crafting a grant proposal, a distinctive grant proposal, and then some grant resources. And let me put a little, make a note here. We all know that when you're writing grants, you absolutely don't learn, or managing grants, or applying for an opportunity, a business grant or a nonprofit grant. You don't learn how to do all of that in one session. You don't learn how to do that in one class. You don't learn how to do that with one degree. It comes with experience, practice, continuous, committed effort in trying to craft the best representation of the services and the impact that you're wanting to bring into the community or into the business community. So let's keep going. So the types of grants. Government grants and we are aware of those, the federal, state, and local. Numerous opportunities with regards to funding for businesses when you think about entities like the SBA, or you think about local city and county entities that offer funding for businesses for their startup or to support their ongoing efforts. But then you also have government grants for the nonprofit, and we'll see that as well. You have your nonprofit grants. They also come from various levels, from the government to foundations, corporations, private individuals. Um, and that focus is, of course, to support the activities and mission of the nonprofit. Then you have corporate grants. Now, these can go either way. You have corporate grants that want to support businesses, startup businesses, a specific arena of business owners. You also have corporate grants that are focused on giving back to the community. They call it the social engagement, community engagement. How can we as a make impact? So they do that on different levels and different modules. Then you have your foundation, industry specific grants. So these are certain industries that have a specific target of who they want to support. So I'm quite sure any of you that are in the IT industry, you probably see many opportunities for businesses that are offering IT customer service support ideas and marketing plans, or the ability to build websites, or the ability to create social media campaigns. Those are businesses that other industry specific businesses love to support because they know that that's the marketing and that's the sharing out of information and getting it rapidly in the industry.
What land is actually going?
So if everyone could make sure that your audio is on mute. Thank you. And then the last one that is very, very widely used, research and development grants. Not only, now we know that universities and educational settings, medicine, they apply and receive billions of dollars every year for research and development grants. But there are also grants that are provided to support the effort of businesses who are trying to create, for example, a white paper on is an effective way for minority entities to enter a certain industry or to enter a certain arena of funding and receive it beyond basic funding levels. So there are topics galore where research and development grants have funded that information. They funded the writing, the development, and bringing forth those innovation and technological advancement ideas. So these are very general description of the different types of grants. And again, there may be one out there today that was just created in the last 6 months. Grant opportunities evolve every day. The types of opportunities evolve every day. What we traditionally used to do, going to like grants.gov or the foundation for their network of grant opportunities, it has expanded so far beyond that that you really just have to find your niche of research and really delving in to see what are the current opportunities and how are they being presented. Sometimes they're not presented in a obvious traditional manner. So it takes the time to really dig in. So what do you need? So we're talking about businesses. Most of us are entrepreneurs or looking at some type of entrepreneurial opportunity. What do you need to consider for business grants? Very basic, high level considerations. Always know your business type and size, because grants are targeted towards specific types of businesses, such as startups sometimes, or an established business, sole proprietors, partnerships, or corporations. You really need to know and be comfortable explaining that. I'm sure you guys have heard of that 15-second elevator speech. Be able to quickly say, this is my business, this is my product, this is what I'm trying to do, this is my target audience, and this is how you can support that effort and how it will benefit you. So know your business type. Then your eligible industry or sector. The best way to explain this or converse about this is, you may have a business that is in hair care or in offering opportunities for the natural hair care. Now, that might seem like a great area for not technology, for manufacturing, or the special um, contents that come for hair care in agriculture. But you may also find that those are not that may not be the focus of that particular industry. They're looking for something specifically to help farmers, or just know what your industry is and how you can fit into what is being offered, what the opportunities that are out there, because they are unique. And again, based on your product service, there may be an industry specific to what you're doing, and don't assume that, general term like healthcare or technology would be a blanket cover. It may be very, very specific, and it may indeed be something that your industry would meet, your product would meet. Consider geographic locations. Targeted grants can be restricted to a certain area. And business ownership. Some grants require that a business be owned by a specific demographic, such as woman-owned, minority-owned, veteran, individual with disabilities, and just be able to provide that proof and ownership, and any certifications that may be required. And we may be aware of those certifications from your SAMs, from your, if you're woman owned, from your woman WSOB, your MBE for diversity, supplier diversity. It just varies, and the grant will let you know, or the opportunity will share with you what those certifications are and what the requirements are as it relates to demographics. Now, in contrast, and I just wanted to pop this in there, nonprofit grants are designed to support specific activities such as development, research, innovation, training, expansion, community development, sustainability, technology integration into a community that perhaps will change the water quality in a particular community. All of these fall more under the nonprofit, the housing that you hear it, providing housing opportunities where you're not creating profit. You are strictly trying to provide a resource, an opportunity for your nonprofit to serve the people. And so, with that being said, the requirements are different, yet like a business grant, they're very specific and strategic, like a business grant. So, regardless of whether you're searching for a business grant or a nonprofit, be aware of who you are, what you're offering, how your impact would be served, how your product would serve, and then be prepared to go and dig and fight for your opportunities. And I don't mean, fight in a negative, but just be determined that you're going to go find the right opportunities for the services and the products that you offer. So some components to consider, or components that are considered in applications. I am sure you guys have seen this list before, but let's just go through it at a very high level. Your executive summary, whether it's a business or nonprofit grant, they both are going to ask for an executive summary. Simply a brief overview of who you are and what you're offering. A description of your business for business grants, the detail of what your services are, what the market trends, the market data is showing about the need. And when you talk about a nonprofit grant, instead of business description, normally that is what is the need? Why do we even need this nonprofit? What's the purpose of it? How is it impacting? As for a business, it's just as demanding in that response. Why do we need your product? How is it impacting and bringing value to the market? And what's the quality? Then we look at business goals and objectives, asking you, what are your goals? How do you intend to achieve your outcomes? When it relates to the nonprofit grants, they're asking the same questions. How are you going to achieve your goals and meet those objectives once you receive the grant funds? Project and initiative details, given the details of how you plan to do it. What does that picture look like? Paint the picture so that when they read it, they don't have to say, well, did y'all understand that? So what exactly are they doing? No, you want to paint that picture and make it as simple as possible. We often like to share the passion behind our interest, behind our products that we're selling, or tell really, really interesting stories. But when you get to certain segments of your application, it is real important that you look at what they're asking for and only provide that information, because there's a limited time on reviewing. I serve as a peer reviewer for the Department of Education at the federal and the state level, and we get 30-page long applications that we have to review. When I get to the sections that are telling me what exactly is this project, I really don't have the time because I've got 10 applications, 300 pages that I've got to get through in a 10-day period. So I need for you or the person writing to tell me, what do you want to do with this funding? Describe that project, make it precise, tell me what the data outcomes you are expecting, and then allow that to represent what you're submitting. Budget and financial projections. When you're working with a business grant opportunity, you need to be clear about expenses. What's it going to cost for startup if it's a startup? What is it going to cost to maintain the business? All of these financial numbers need to be clear in your projections. My recommendation, work with an accountant, work with a CPA, work with someone who has the knowledge and experience to create a financial projection story, presentation, document, whatever you want to call it. Your budget and financial projection should be clear. When it comes to the nonprofit grants, how are you going to spend that money? You are telling them down to the penny. How are you going to spend that money? So much with federal grants, they even have you breaking down, if you're going to purchase computers, how many computers, how much does it cost, how many, and that cost is placed inside your budget. So with businesses, it's the same kind of breakdown. What's been your financial statement, your income, the revenue, the money set aside for ongoing innovation? Do you plan to scale up even more with your product? Where do you want to see it grow? So those are things that your budget and financial projections should be able to provide. And forgive me if I'm going too fast, but if you have questions, please drop them in the chat, and Marinette and I will reach those towards the end. But if you have an urgent question or something that's absolutely not clear, feel free to raise your hand, and hopefully our tech person can find you and get your question answered quickly. Business plan. I hope everyone has created a business plan at least twice at a minimum, and it's really more than that, because we all know that your business evolves. So maybe you started out with a basic plan, and then the market changed, some things happened, COVID hit, didn't hit, life happened, and you're like, oh, the need for that particular product is still there, but it looks like they're needing it in for a different use purpose. So you need to shift that business plan, rewrite it, but always make sure that your current business plan is meeting your overall, or responding to and sharing your overall strategy and growth plan, that your market analysis is current, that you are current about your competitors. You should always be able to name at least 2 competitors who are providing the same product. Miracle that you don't have any competitors? Not likely, but it's possible. And if you're in that blessed scenario where you don't have any competitors, then you really, really have something outstanding that you need to be putting out there. Because once people see it, of course, then you get your copycats and those who duplicate it. So know your competitive landscape. Your marketing strategies. Do you have a team? Do you have anybody? And the team doesn't have to be someone paid. It could be your amazing teenage child or niece or nephew or godchild who's in that social media world, and they see how someone can do a single TikTok and turn it from 20 views to 1 million views in less than a week. They understand how those trends work. Now, with you, of course, you can spend money, spend thousands and thousands of dollars for that support. And it's okay if you have the funding to do that. That's absolutely okay. But look at the resources that are around you. Look at the, tap into some of the local universities and colleges that may have marketing students that are looking for experience. All of that to say, know what strategies you need to use for marketing. And then your operations plan and organizational structure, your board, and making sure that there's a plan. All of these are components that are going to be requested to be responded to in that application. Who is your board? How does your business operate? Some may ask these details and some may not even care. But once you get in and you start receiving the funding, there will be those questions that will come up. So still make sure that you are able to provide board information and your plan of operation. Continued impacts and outcomes, being able to tell what and how is my business going to impact? How is my nonprofit going to impact the community? Sustainability and long term. Now, anybody in business knows one of the biggest and critical questions, and this is a question that is actually a full section in a lot of federal grants. And it is absolutely a consideration when you are applying for a business grant or looking at federal contracts or state, county, local, city contracts. What's the sustainability? If we give you this $1.5 million, will this business, will this nonprofit still be around 10 years from now? Because as much as it may seem that large funding amounts are easy to spend, they are very difficult to go through. I did some contract work with one of the local federal agencies, served as a grant specialist, and you will be amazed at how much money is returned to the federal government because entities are not able to spend it all. There was not a clear sustainability and long-term plan in place that could show how we would spend $10 million over a 5 to 10 year period. That's a lot of money to spend in any time frame. Most people, if you retire on $1 million, you're good for the rest of your life, depending upon how you invest. So you can imagine a nonprofit, a grassroots nonprofit, getting, I don't know, $1 million. Oh, we can get salaries, we can get our staff, we can get, our building refurbished and some other things. And then they're like, oh, well, that's only going to cost about 500,000 to get all that done. So my whole point in mentioning about how money is spent is understand your project, your business. Understand long term what kind of money will be needed to keep it sustained and moving forward. Don't just go for the high dollars if you don't feel like you can spend that money, because the repercussions are you won't get refunded. And when you have to return money, whether it's for a nonprofit or not effectively spending money given for a business, then people tend to turn away if you need assistance or funding down the road. So just plan, think about it. Where am I going to be in 10 years? I'm excited right now. I've got my 5 years, but am I really wanting this business to go beyond a certain time frame? And if not, that's fine too. But just know where and how long your business and the potential for the growth of your business or your nonprofit, what that looks like. There are going to be questions. The next component, business background and qualifications. I was sharing with a colleague, always have a business resume. Always have a resume of what your business has accomplished, what impacts they have made. For nonprofits, always have a resume of what your business has achieved, that data, and some references. People who can speak to the quality of your business, the quality of your products, and people who can speak to the services of the impact of your nonprofit. Information about the founders and owners and their qualifications. Confident in who and what you do, that you can share. Yes, I have myself and my co-owner. These are our qualifications and our background. All of those things are going to be important. And even more specific example, I don't know if any of you have ever participated in a contract requesting funding from, or doing business, I'm sorry, with the federal government. There is an experience section, and that experience section is really a resume and references. Who have you worked with? Who have you done this specific work for? And what's their name and their contact information? So think about all of the things that you've done with your business. Build those references, build those names and those contacts. It may have been something you did 10 years ago. They're not going to ask you when you did it. They're just going to ask, can you give us a name and can you confirm for us that you did this specific work for them? As it relates to the nonprofit, you're just wanting to show data and those impacted by the services of the nonprofit. Another component that might be needed, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, the market need and demand. Know what the market is asking for, and do they have a need for your product? Even with the nonprofit, we talk about the homeless. The homeless entity at one point was saturated with everybody wanting to help the homeless. Now we got to, and which is still a great need, and actually an extended need. It's pretty challenging arena right now. Another example is the COVID. At one point, there business-wise, there was a big demand for the materials, the face mask, and it was, I've heard stories where people were up for days, 24, 48 hours straight, trying to get those PPE products from one part of the country or overseas to the hospitals. And those that were able to successfully do those contracts were making millions of dollars overnight, life-changing situations. So those are examples of a current market need and whether or not the demand and demand was there. So the question is, always ask yourself, how relevant is my product? What is the market saying about the need? And as it relates to your nonprofit, what services am I providing that this area that I'm serving does not have? Are there already 5 homeless shelters? I don't think that I can bring another one um, and be as impactful or get as much funding. Maybe I just need to find another area because homelessness is everywhere. So that's just an example. Supporting documentation, those are your letters of recommendation. They definitely will be required in those grants. And again, that experience for the business, not necessarily letters for your business grants, but you will need to have a resume of experience again, where you can allow the entities reviewing your business grant to be able to reference where the experience and who they can reach out to for confirmations. So you're wanting your certifications, your licenses, and any other documents that they consider required and that may be relevant. That was a mouthful. Components considered in a grant application. So let's look at some facts that can make your grant application stand out just a little bit more. We talked a little bit about some of these already, but when you are wanting to be seen and heard, again, clear and compelling purpose. Articulate clearly the purpose and the goals. Do not pour in extra stories, although they may be amazing stories. Save those for the conversations. Save those for the network opportunities. Save those for the workshops that you will present. That's when those stories and those impact um, conversations will be very important. Innovation. Again, we talked about it already. What's the impact? Is this different? Is it a new solution? New approach? Alignment with funders' priorities. Cannot say how critical that this particular consideration is. If your funder is saying, I want to fund products that help clean water in certain areas of the country, you cannot go to them and say, well, I have packaging that would hold those products. That's not what they're asking for. They're asking for ideas. They're asking for specific solution to clean water. So be careful that what you're offering is not something you're trying to fit in to the funder's priority, but that you're actually responding to their priority request or need. Strong research and evidence. If this was just a nonprofit grant training class, I probably would have started out with the statement, data, 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 and more data. You always need to be able to provide proof and evidence that what you are trying to do, there is a need. And here's the proof, period. Number 5, have a well-defined plan. Present a detailed project plan with clear objective milestones. Talked about that as well. Timeline, we didn't mention. Milestones and timeline. Those are going to be some of the documents that you would put in a nonprofit grant. But for a business grant, it's always important to have that timeline. They're going to ask, for example, you may be applying for a contract or bidding for a contract, and they're going to ask, okay, we give you the contract. We need a timeline. How quickly can you get the product to us that we're asking about? Maybe they're wanting somebody to come do training. Okay, we've got a training module set up for 2024. Tell us what your timeline is for getting from 2023 to being ready for 2024. So timelines, business or nonprofit, are going to be critical. And then a qualified team. You know what quality is. You know your product better than anyone. Pull together a team not only that's qualified, but that cares about your vision and that are willing to carry out the project to the end. Measurable outcomes. Sorry about that. I clicked the wrong button. Measurable outcomes. We've talked about that. Sustainability. We've talked about that. Community engagement. Now, this is a critical component that helps your application stand out. As much as funders, donors, business venture capitalists like or seek rather to give funding, they always want to know who are your stakeholders and who in the community are your partners. So your stakeholders, they could be anyone. For example, if you are providing an emission tool to reduce emission on school buses, well, the business product is an emission device. Your stakeholders are your children, the parents, the community, the school system, EPA, local, the state EPA, federal EPA. All of those can be considered stakeholders. And the reason they're asking is because they think, or the mindset or the thought process is, if you've got engaged stakeholders and committed community support, that means there's more funding out there, and that particular entity won't be the only one giving you money. That is not their desire. Rarely does a nonprofit who receive a grant get it and are told you don't have to have other partners, or people don't ask who your stakeholders are. Everyone wants to be a part of the team, not the sole provider. That's a lot of responsibility, and it doesn't ensure that sustainability that we talked about. You've got to have partnerships and engage in the community. Get the city involved. Get the local political representatives involved. They have money. They have pockets of money. So being able to show your community engagement, whether it's a product or nonprofit service, show that engagement. Effective communication. Always present, again, I've said this several times, so I apologize for repetitiveness. Be concise and make sure that what you're writing is effective in understanding. Have other people read it. Have other people review it. Your budget clarity, very simple. Anytime budgets look convoluted or unclear, that's an uncomfortable response to anybody reading it. They're like, okay, I'm not clear what you're doing with the money. I see you've got supplies, or you've got equipment, and you've got $200,000 for equipment and $50,000 for supplies, and that's all you've got. What are you doing with that money? What exactly is your equipment? What exactly are the supplies? So be clear. And then talk about previous successes. Again, that experience we talked about, that resume, having the experience and the resume combined are always helpful. So now finding those opportunities. There are, again, multiple sources, and being very transparent, we could give you multiple links, and the links would not be relevant to what you are seeking, or they may be so saturated that you don't get anything from it. So, what I would like for you all to consider: identify search engines like grants.gov or GrantWatch if you're talking about nonprofits or doing business with the government. SAM.gov has opportunities for businesses. The SBA. Consider search engines that on a regular basis you check and review. Government sites. Where's your city? What is your county doing? What are the big businesses in the areas that you live in? What are the small businesses that you've seen maybe at a 5K? Or maybe you look at a fundraiser that you've gone to and you consistently see the same organization supporting a particular area that you also either support with your nonprofit or your business services could impact. Begin to track and follow them. Begin to engage with them on LinkedIn. Let them see your business. Let them see your services. That's another way of engaging. Networking and attending events. This is a perfect example. What We Up does is amazing for building a network of women who are seeking to build their businesses or their nonprofits and have an impact. There are LinkedIn opportunities with that networking, social media, all kinds of options that are out there. Then your industry associations and nonprofits. And you guys can probably think of tons of those. The Black Accountants Association, the Women in Marketing, Minorities in IT. There are tons of industry associations and nonprofits that you can even partner with, those who are working with nonprofits. Go find out who these nonprofits are that are doing the same things that you're doing. Y'all may be in different arenas, so your audiences or your services won't impact the same group, but you'll be able to expand and impact multiple groups, yet at the same time talk to each other about ways and how you all are being successful. That's the one thing we tend to shy away from, is sharing successes and sharing ideas. There is probably heard a parent say, there's more than enough for everybody, so just sit down and take your part and let's sit down and eat. Always enough opportunity out there for us all. Tap into the next one, corporate and private foundations. Research those corporate foundations, those companies that you are interested in. I just came across a company that's out of Belgium, and I started looking, and they are actually trying to figure out how to do volunteerism right here in the US. So great opportunity for someone to go and talk to them, find out who to talk to, and have a conversation. I can help you with your volunteerism. Or you come across a small company that is really needing regular access to, I don't know, styrofoam cups. Whoever you are, that maybe you have the services that you can on a regular basis begin to provide them those paper goods. The trucking industry. There are not a lot of women in the trucking industry, but there's a lot of work and opportunities out there. So, being a part of those conversations, those corporate trucking companies, and then again, the private foundations, go to those websites. go to the about sections and see who those CEOs are and see what they're doing in the community. And if it's a local, start going to some of those events. Start tapping into, like I said, those activities. If they're having a 5K, well, then register your company to participate in that 5K. You never know who you're going to be walking with out there. But finding the funding, my dear participants, is really based on the depth of your desire to go and put the time in to regular research, identifying those companies, those industries, those industry associations, those search engines that you think are relevant to what your needs are. And then on a weekly basis, maybe every Monday, you wake up, that's the first thing you do, go through all of your search engine opportunities. And then again on Wednesday for LinkedIn, a lot of new things come out on Wednesdays on LinkedIn. I had a company I was working with that did data on the best time to put new information out on LinkedIn. And they said Wednesdays. Wednesdays is when the most people look at LinkedIn. It's when the most people put new information out there, new job opportunities, new networking events. I didn't argue. I just accepted it because they're the ones that had the data. So just as a tidbit to you guys, Wednesdays on LinkedIn, if you got something special you want to put out there and you want to get high exposure, definitely put it out there on Monday and again on Wednesdays. So these are the tools. This is the guidance that in all transparency, I want you all to understand work better than being given links that you'll go through and like, oh, that doesn't apply to me. Oh, that doesn't work for me. You've got to go find what works for you. And these are some suggested areas: search engines, government websites, network and attending events, industry associations and nonprofits, corporate and private foundations. Follow them, follow them, follow them, and get involved. Sites, crowdfunding, crowdsourcing platforms. They're not traditional grants, and crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo can help you raise funds for your small business ideas. My daughter and her, what she called her little sister, her sorority sister, they started their studio 2 years ago, and they used crowdfunding. They produced films in 22 and they produced a film in 23, and they're still both under the age of, they're 25 and under, but they use those platforms to help with the equipment cost, trying to get acting talent to travel. And a lot of their people, these young people are so amazing to me, so committed. When they find their passion, they are so committed, because a lot of the talent came without charging and they traveled some 4, 5, 7, 8 hours. But anyway, saying all that to say, crowdfunding is a great resource. And a lot of young people are using it to help with their businesses. So, of course, the SBA, your private grant databases, you can pay for those. The Foundation Directory Online and Grant Watch, there are fees for those. So if you have that budget, by all means, go for it. Small business development centers. My friends, these business development centers, if you really commit to what they're offering and get involved and attach yourself to their activities, they can be an amazing resource for you. Whether it's learning, whether it's funding opportunity, whether it's networking, they truly have a wealth of knowledge about local opportunities. They're through the SBA, the Small Business Development Centers. You can go into any, whether it's Chrome or internet, and just put SBDC see in your city, and you will get guidance on how to find one of those centers. You do need to be registered with the SBA as well, but they will provide that guidance. George, for those of you locally in Atlanta, Georgia Tech and Kennesaw, as well as I believe Morehouse, they all have insight and programs. Georgia Tech has an amazing SBDC center, amazing one. So reach out. Those are sources of support and resources for funding. Other sites to consider, we talked a little bit, social media and online communities. If you have forums, groups that are interested in the same thing, join them. Get involved. Social media can be a little bit overwhelming for some. I'm not a big social media person. To be honest, I may have one or two social media groups that I participate in. I do better, although LinkedIn is considered social media, I do better with LinkedIn than with Instagram and some of the other social media platforms that are out here. And there are a lot. There are a lot. But join them. The biggest thing that they offer is they talk about what's relevant right now. You may not get information on where to get a grant, but you certainly can get feedback on whether your product is needed, and not so much by asking, but just listening and getting involved in the conversations, and they're talking about what's going on. That is an amazing space to hear and gather data, facts, insight on your business as well as your nonprofit. So we wanted to just give you a little bit of concern, something to be aware of, rather, the concerns that come from when you expose your business and your nonprofit. I know that you guys already know this, that once you put your business out there in the sense of, for one, when you're in sam.gov, it's public information. So you'll get tons of people who go through SAMS, pull out potential customers, and they start emailing you every week. Some of those are legitimate businesses, and then sometimes you'll get caught up in a really just, somebody who's just not a good person. I've gotten a couple of really just bad things. I've had to do blocks, and I've even had to do reporting and calling certain software companies to assist with getting them off of my email. So be aware of how you are securing your business information, what you're sharing, protecting personal and financial information, the phishing awareness, reviewing private policies. Oftentimes we don't review those privacy policies, but we really just need, because a lot of times the information that we are providing, it's the privacy policy, in fact, allows it to be shared out. They'll tell you that they're protecting it, but then they'll have a small caveat that only to our direct partners will we share your information. And if that's not what you want, then of course you don't accept that privacy agreement. Being aware of third-party sites, verify the legitimacy of any third-party websites. I know you guys know this, I won't take up much time explaining it, but just remember this point. All government information and support is free. Never, ever pay unless you personally don't want to do it, like you don't want to do your SAMS.gov registration, and you don't want to do the work of developing your board or the paperwork for a certain certification. Absolutely, there are people that will do that for you for a fee. But I wanted you all to know you can do it all on your own, with support, and for free. I say never pay, but some people's expertise. If somebody, if part of the requirement was for me to write a code for programming, I would have to pay somebody. I mean, and I'm being very, very general because I know coding is a very specialized skill, but say it was like writing your name, it had become a skill where it was as simple as writing your name. Well, for me, I still might be intimidated by writing that code. So yeah, I'll go pay somebody to do the code for me and then move on. But I just want to put that out there. Don't get sucked into paying for free information and for free support that is yours. Other grant resources: Amazon, Comcast Rise, Google, FedEx Small Business Grant Contest that they have, Visa Everywhere initiatives. These are, if you want to take a picture, these are other specific business resources that you can look at. And so if you go and you don't see anything and it's not what you're trying to do, guess what you should do? If you do see that they are close to some of the things, or you might like some of the things they're doing, put them on that Monday or one day a week review that you check every week. And I really do mean checking every week. You never know what pops up. These are some others: Chase Mission, Lowe's Small Business Grant Program, Wells Fargo, American Express, Intuit, QuickBooks. They all have opportunities. And that concludes our presentation. So I want to thank you for your time. We are in partnership with myself. I am J.H. Allen and Associates. That's my email and my cell number. You're welcome to reach out at your convenience at any time. And I appreciate this time. I appreciate you guys listening. It takes a lot to listen to one voice. So I'm going to stop talking and turn it back over to Marionette, and we will go from there.
If you go to the
I'm going to
next
stop
slide for me.
sharing.
Go to the next slide for me. I think go to the next slide, the last slide.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, go to the last slide. Thank you,
Yes,
Jennifer.
ma'am.
Such a great presentation. You brought us some really good points that we can talk about. I wanted to kind of really open up the discussion. I want everybody put put their microphones on and show their faces. And feel free to ask Jennifer or I any questions. Jennifer will facilitate the discussion. I can always come on and add my little two cents to the conversation. So please, here's WeOp's contact information. Take a screenshot of it. You can visit us, become a member, go to our website, subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on Instagram at WeOp Inc. We'll be posting this YouTube video on our YouTube channel called Women's Employment Op. That's our YouTube channel. And we post all our videos on this channel. Also go to women@weop.org. So take a snapshot of this screen and keep in contact with us. Okay, now we're going to turn it over. Tasha, turn everybody's screen on. And let's share and talk and have an engaging discussion.
Before I stop sharing, I was gonna let the audience know and this is a plug to WeOp. When I found WeOp, I kind of think I found home when it came to really having conversations about women trying to build their business. So if you all are not members, you really should consider it. Even if you come and just listen to a few of the conversations, that team, Marionette and her sister, do an absolutely outstanding job of trying to connect all of us to opportunities. So that's my plug. It's a personal plug. She didn't ask me to do it, but I needed to say it because I'm very, very grateful for what WeOp has done for me and my business. So
And
now
thank
I'll
you.
stop sharing.
And thank you too, because we feel like the members like you kind of help share expertise and resources, and we're all about building a community to help and support each other. So thank you as well for a great presentation, sharing your
Yes,
information. We really want to continue the conversation on an ongoing basis. So thank you for all you do for WeOp, and we appreciate you as well.
yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I'm
Let's
going to
open.
stop sharing.
Everybody's here, and so anybody, if you want to ask a question, raise your hand, and we'll address the question. And feel free to show your face. I want to see everybody's faces and talk. You don't have to be dressed up. See, I'm casual. And then we're going to
Hi,
end this call.
Kim.
We're going to end this call exactly as soon as the questions stop. We will end the phone call because Jennifer claims her daughter is traveling to Atlanta. There's all kind of storms going on, so we want to stop the call for the sake of time at no later than 2:30. Hello, everybody. Nice to see everybody's faces. Okay. Okay. So does anybody let's start off. Anybody want to open the floor and have any kind of questions or concerns? And also feel free to give us feedback about your experience as well. So any questions, concerns, feedback, comments, we're open to listening.
Hermes. I see Hermes.
Yes,
Hi.
hi everyone. It's Hermance.
Hermes.
Yes, Hermance. Thank you so much. This was definitely on time because I've been going back and forth about, should I look for grants? Should I, so this was very much a lot of nuggets and gold to be able to proceed and make my decision. The question I have is, in the past, I was a contracts grant manager I was on the other side, right? Working for the government. And I remember, going through that whole process of going through, applications and proposals. And so if there's one thing that you can share, because I know sometimes it could be so much, right? That I remember saying like presentation, how important presentation is when it comes to the proposal. And I'd love for you to like reinforce, like, reiterate that. Because I remember just receiving proposals. And like I said, I was working for the government at the time that were just, not only was it abundant, but things like grammar, things like just punctuation, just like there were so many things sometimes that was distracting me from really focusing on how they were answering the proposal.
Yeah. Well, you actually made the statement. So that is, there are proposals. I define proposals as what is being submitted when you're trying to do contracts or business with the government. And then you have your nonprofit applications, documents, 30-page proposals. If you can sit down and read your own writing and understand what you have written, you are halfway there. Once you read it, you need to go back and let someone else read it. Utilize those tools that are online like Grammarly, because I'm telling you, sitting down, when I talked about being a peer review reader, I had 10 applications, 30 pages long, and we had to do peer review team meetings, 10 days. If I could not understand that application, I did not have the time to figure out what you meant versus what I actually read.
Yeah.
So if the statement is, my dog is red and he lives across the street, say that. Don't say, my dog is red with a long tail, but I think the cat next to him might have gotten some of that red tail paint on him, and he lives across the street, but also down this. What? Where does the dog live and what color is it? And I'm being very simplistic because I want you to understand how critical it is. Just make the statement. The statement.
All right.
So did that answer?
Yes,
Did that clarify?
definitely.
Okay.
And yeah, thank you so very much. I have to go to another meeting, but this has been a pleasure as always. So
Thank
take
you.
care. And
You too.
hi,
Thank you.
Kim. It's been years since we spoke. Got to get back in touch with you. All right. See ya.
And to your point, Jennifer, about making a statement, I think that's important and not to give too much information and get too wordy when you're answering a grant. And I tend to sometimes do the same thing. So stick to your basic facts and not provide too much information, but still make it clear and concise. So I think that's really good feedback. And I want to also add that another important component is your financials, is being able to really take your grant and put into financial terms to let people understand. You explain it, but you still have to have your explanation match your numbers. And people need to understand how important the financials are to their grant. Regardless of what you say, if your financials don't really come in sync with what you're asking for, it can really stop you from getting that grant. So really understand those financials, hire a bookkeeper or look at examples. And that is so important because those financials alone, you can have a good grant and have really bad financials, and that would take you out of the game. So they really have to, the financials and the wording have to really match and have to be clear and concise as you're wording and understand.
Absolutely.
And they have to understand that you know what to do with this money. You have to have financial accountability. If you don't qualify for my money. If I'm a fund to give you money, you have to show me that you understand what you're going to do with my money. If you can't articulate that in words and in writing, you don't qualify for my money. And that's what funds.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
We have a hand up. Shayna?
Yes. Good. Is it afternoon? So thank you so much for this presentation. Since January, I've been on the hunt for grants and I'm still waiting, but I'm still applying diligently. The crazy thing is I've gotten a technical grant for my university, and now I'm trying to get funding for my business. I have a lot of different moving parts. I own a supplementary tutoring company, Math. We provide tutoring. And I'm trying to figure out if there is something particular, like I've heard you need to appeal to emotions when you're writing for the non-government grants because the person or the people who are reviewing wants to connect or something like that. And then I've heard they're looking for a minimum for the previous year because they always ask, so what was your previous year's minimum or amount that you, so I'm trying to figure out where is the medium. If we're trying to get there, but you haven't made a lot, like $1 million yet, right? But you have a vision, and then I'm used to writing technically. I'm trying to figure out, am I supposed to be appealing to emotion? But, I'm trying to figure out how can I win this money?
So let me ask this first question. You said you've already won a technical grant?
Yes, with the National Science Foundation. So this one is for my
Okay.
university, and we give scholarships to students. So it's
Okay.
separate and apart from my business.
So that means if you've won, especially the National Science Foundation, if you've won a grant at that level, then you already have the skill set. So when they're asking about the budget, and I kind of am breaking this up, I heard two parts. One, you were asking about how to respond to a budget for your nonprofit if you don't have longevity with funding. How do you respond to where you've been with it? Is that?
Well, so they asked what was your gross for, let's say, the previous year. And my business is relatively new because I really started moving the business when I graduated with my PhD, and that was like 2 years ago. But
Okay.
I filed for the business 5 years ago. So it's kind of like, they're expecting you to be at a certain rev, 5 years in business, but I really wasn't operating the business for 5 years, if that makes sense. And so I'm wondering if, because I'm not at a certain level in gross rev, if it's counting me out. That's the first question.
Have they asked for revenue levels? Have they said you need to be at a certain amount of money in order to qualify for that particular business grant? And if they've not, my recommendation is you account for your time, whether it was volunteer time, and you account for the hours that you actually had clients that you served. Work with an accountant who can delineate the difference between those volunteer hours and the amount that equates to in income had you charged them, so that you have an official statement of what kind of time have you actually put out there? Because I think, and I don't know the actual application that you're talking about, so I'm kind of guessing here. I'm thinking that when they're asking about revenue, they want to know how much time have you spent in this particular job or business already. So if you've not necessarily made money in the business, but you've spent countless hours assisting, supporting people, all of that is considered revenue. It just wasn't paid revenue. So get your accountant to help you present your financial statement so that you are able to, with transparency, show that you've done the work, you've got the experience, your income has not necessarily been high, but with the tools and the support from the funding that you're seeking, you're hoping to improve that. You're hoping that the funding will help you increase that revenue. That's the whole point of asking for business grants, is to kind of help you elevate the business.
And I want to add to that, you have to really make sure you read the requirements as well, because some grants really are not for startups. And if you produce up a startup with revenue, you have to look at what type of, what that grant is looking for. Like, to give you an example, there was a foundation called SoCal Foundation, and SoCal Foundation would give money to people who are starting up. So it's really important to know, like Jennifer said earlier, the type of grant. Some grants don't want to fund you if you're a startup. Some grants are really kind of filtering through all the noise and really understanding the requirements of it, because they will tell you how long you should be in business, how much revenue you should have. So if you don't reach and meet those qualifications, don't waste your time applying for them. Look for grants that deal with startup businesses or new businesses and focus on that niche, because every grant has a niche. So it's important to understand that niche that grant is looking for, so you won't waste a lot of valuable time applying for grants that you don't qualify for. Like even with WEOP, since we're a women's organization, there's grants that say, oh, you have to have a revenue of $1 million. You have to service da. So read those requirements very carefully, and so you don't waste your time applying for something you don't qualify for. So since you're a startup, look for grants that fund startups, because there are grants that out there that fund startups. Do research startup grant opportunities and research and apply for those type of grants.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And feel free, I'm available if you have questions, not to charge, but because it looks like you're struggling, and it could be a real simple answer for you. So feel free to reach out to me.
Mm-hmm. And I want to make it clear too that in the grant process, don't look at it as a grant as a main source of your revenue. Grants are very competitive. They're available for niche industries. There's so many out here, but they are niche markets. So I don't want to tell a business, oh, you should take all your time, apply for grants. Try to look for other ways you can diversify your income streams. If it's through a partnership or collaboration, through getting be a subcontractor. So try to find ways to diversify how you get money. Don't look at the grant process as a way of funding your whole business, because that is not being realistic to say that. If you talk to so many businesses, you can ask them, how many grants have you received? One may say 1 or 2 grants out of a lifetime, or 4 or 5 years. So don't look at them. You see so much information, all the grant sites, YouTube, you can get this grant for your business. Well, that's theoretically is not, it's not making sense a lot of times. So very competitive. Try to think of other ways you can diversify your income, even if you have a nonprofit. Try to think of ways you can make money, selling books, publications, subject matter expert, diversify.
Yeah.
Do not think with grants as your main source of income, or unless you, like if you have a big technology or presented vaccination, whatever, a research grant, that's a game changer. But for regular type businesses, it could be products or whatever, don't think about grants as your main source of income. That's my recommendation.
Yeah. And respond to the questions, Shayna. Don't worry about the what ifs. That's a lot of times the mental block that happens. Just focus on what they're asking you for and provide it. Just provide what they're asking for.
Mhm.
Mona. Hi, Mona.
Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. So I have, and Marionette, I think you may have answered my questions, but I'm having, I am transitioning from a for-profit mindset to a nonprofit mindset. And so in your opinion, Jennifer, I'm not sure if you ever worked on the for-profit side or not, but what are some things that what are some ways to switch that mindset or transition that mindset? Because in my mind, and this is the second part of the question, if I know that, I'm all about diversification, having multiple streams and revenue and all that kind of stuff. But when I think about applying for grants, I guess I'm wondering, like, do you include, along with all the other, substantive information that you provide for the grantee, I believe it would be, or maybe the grantor, I'm not sure. But anyways, in addition to all of the substantive information that you provide, where do you put your income that you make or that you receive from that grant, from doing all of the work that the grant requires? Does that make sense?
So you're trying to understand, the first part I heard, shifting from for-profit to nonprofit. So let me answer that part first.
Okay.
The only shift is the product. The passion and the drive to get your business product out there, to have a response, to build your customer base, that does not change. It's the same drive and passion for that nonprofit to get those that you are serving, those recipients, the data of the need, that doesn't change. It doesn't change. It's just, carrying the passion from making the money to making the impact in the community. And as far as your revenue for the nonprofit, there's always an administrative fee that you are allowed in most grants. And that administrative fee is used however you need it. Some grants, private grants, will allow you to state that that administrative fee. Federal grants, I don't know if you ever heard of the indirect rate costs that is applied in a federal grant. Universities and school systems, research entities, they get indirect rate costs sometimes 30, 40, 50% of what the grant is. And that administrative money is used for paying salary, paying for the building, paying for utilities in the building, things that have nothing to do with direct services of the grant, but support the ability of the grant to function, or the program to function. That's how those administrative fees are used. So finding your income in a nonprofit entity, your administrative, and then whatever consultation, whatever training, whatever workshops you can provide and support people. And that's usually another avenue. Now, Marionette, you will have some other.
The major shift with a nonprofit is really about building relationships. A lot of people think that, you can get money from, you have to start going out there, networking and building relationships with funders and people that have access to other people. And so it's not just sitting out a whole bunch of grants, foundations. They have to know who you are, what you do. So every grant that we have gotten has been somebody that we knew or referred us to. So your major shift is going to be getting out there in the community, making networking, going to meetings, meeting people at community foundations, getting out there. So your shift is going to be getting people to know who you are and what you do. And also, since you want to go to nonprofit sector, you have to show that you have, like Jennifer said, community involvement, work with stakeholders, work with partnerships. You cannot operate on a silo when operating a nonprofit. You have to be involved with your community and your stakeholders. So the major shift is going to be about building relationships. Everybody we got money from, the We Up, has been somebody that we knew, or somebody knew us, or somebody referred us. So that's what is so important. It's not just sitting down applying for. You have to pick up the phone, call people, tell people who you are, what you want to do, contact big organizations within your community. Oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm gonna start a nonprofit. Build the relationships, build partnerships, get out there, let people know who you are, what you do, go do things on LinkedIn. So I think that the main shift is going to be building relationships and letting funders know who you are, picking up the phone and calling people, sending them information, letters of inquiry. That's where the shift comes from.
Yes, awesome.
And
That
Is
answer,
that,
every
did that
funder,
answer it for you?
yeah,
Okay.
every funder I talked to ladies that have been working foundation. They said that we have people we fund and they get money over and over again because they have built that relationship. And so we have to break those barriers and try to meet people and let people know who we are and what we do. We send letters to people. We reach out because even as women of color, we're going to get, we always have to fight different obstacles and challenges. And so we have to contact people, send letters, be controversial, write articles to let people know, hey, we want funding too. So you have to be very aggressive too and reaching out to people.
Yeah.
thank you. That's good
That-
stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, the income it's a little different. It's a little different for the nonprofit, but certainly it's possible.
And now I can add to that now finally, and history is changing, that they are recognizing, and there's been studies coming out. I can cite 4 or 5 studies saying that as Black women founders for nonprofits, we get less money, significantly less money. So now there are people who are recognizing that, and the funders are kind of funding organizations that are led and founded by women of color more so than they ever have been in the past. And I think JP Morgan was a good example. No, Goldman Sachs 100 Women Initiative, they're a good example of those funding women organizations led and founded. And you have even like Community Foundation Greater Atlanta, they're now funding what you call BIPOC organizations, Black, Indigenous women of color, and BIPOC, and they're reaching out to make sure that women of color organizations, different Native Americans are getting funding now because they didn't get funding before. And they're the ones that make a difference in our community. So now there's a change. So there are opportunities now for you being a nonprofit and being designated as a woman of color, starting a nonprofit. Okay, any other questions? We have exactly, we have 5. We have time for one more question. We're going to stop this call 2:30 for time's sake. Does anybody have any other questions or anything that they want to ask at the last minute?
They need the link to the WeOp YouTube channel in the chat.
It is, let me type it in the chat, women's employment. Okay, women's employment. We got to change our name. And that's the link to the YouTube. And also, if you Google or if you you guys see it?
Did you put it back in the chat?
And my keyboard is not working for some odd reason. Okay, my keyboard is not working, but it's women's.
I see it. Oh, somebody just put it in there. Okay.
Yeah, Shayna put it in there for us.
And also, if you Google our name and YouTube, our site will come up. We have 2 sites, but we have 300 some subscribers. So if you Google it as well, it will come up in the YouTube. Just Google our full name, Women's Entrepreneur Opportunity Project, and it will come up in the YouTube channel where like I said, we're going to post the videos. Any video that we have in this call will be posted on the YouTube. If you missed it, it will be posted on the YouTube channel in about another 3 or 4 days with the title and everything, and we'll give you verification when we post it as well. Okay, any other questions? If not, I can end this phone call. Any other questions or any chat, any last minute? Okay, well, we want to thank everybody for coming out to the call. And again, when you have our contact information, if you have any questions, you can email us directly at WeOp Women, email at women@weop.org. Thanks for everybody coming out. Let's stay connected. And we're going to end this phone call and say bye to everybody. And it's nice seeing all of you guys' faces.
Thank you all.
And
thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for this workshop. You did a great job. We appreciate everything you contribute to the organization. See everybody.
Yes,
Good afternoon.